I read about a fellow who was walking down the street of a very large city that he was visiting, having never been there before. As he walked along the footpath, a young couple coming toward him smiled as they drew closer to him. When they came alongside of him, they excitedly began a conversation, although he had no idea who they were. The young lady gave him a huge hug, as though they were long-lost relatives. He tried to keep the conversation as general as he could while trying to think of their names, but he didn't know them, and it became a bit tricky at times. Then it seemed as though they suddenly realised that this was not who they thought it was, and they tried to shut the conversation down without causing too much embarrassment. The man was amazed to think that there was someone else in that city living there who looked just like him. "You haven't changed a bit," they had told him. "Hey, has that ever happened to you?" Actually, it happened to a lovely couple of people in the Gospels, although in a slightly different way. This is actually the basis for one of my favourite Bible stories. Jesus had just been crucified in Jerusalem, and these two people, who most scholars feel was Cleopas, name's Cleopas, and his wife. And after the disappointment of Jesus' crucifixion, they decided, as soon as the Sabbath was over, they were going to go back home to Emmaus, which was about 12 kilometres away. And as they were walking along, a stranger came alongside of them and asked why they were looking so sad. "Haven't you heard?" they asked him. "You must be the only person around here who doesn't know about the events of the last few days. Surely you've heard." "What things?" Jesus asked them. And so they described all that had happened to Jesus and why they were sad because of the situation. They had failed to recognise that this person who was walking with them was actually Jesus. They never even began to imagine that it could be Jesus. Their eyes were kept, so we're told, from recognising him. Now, Jesus led them through an amazing study of scriptures, one of the best Bible studies you could have been in. And as he explained those scriptures to them, they still didn't make the connection. So as they neared Emmaus, Jesus appeared to be going further on, but they invited him to stay at their place and to eat a meal with them. It was as though they began to share that meal without knowing who he was. But as soon as Jesus broke that bread, their eyes were opened and they recognised him, and he immediately disappeared. They could not believe that they had been so blind and had missed Jesus when he was right there with them all of the time. Now, there are times in our lives when we think that we're on our own. We feel as though God has forgotten us. And yet, as with Cleopas and the other unnamed person, Jesus came alongside of them, and he promises to do the same with you and me as well. It's a good time to be reminded of that. It's a good time to be reminded that we are never alone. Indeed, that is the Easter message. Jesus died on the cross. He overcame the power of sin and death, and he lives eternally. Have you ever been confused in life? God understands our confusion, thankfully, and through Jesus, he speaks into it. Jesus ascended into heaven after giving his promise of power from on high, the promise of the Holy Spirit, the Comforter. Now, the point that I want to make is that so often we fail to notice that Jesus is with us. He promised to never leave us nor forsake us, and he often surprises us if we are awake and seeking him in our lives. That's worth thinking about. Have a wonderful week, and may God richly